3 chapters, alright? So we're going to chapter 25. If you notice, we're in a different place. Now, this is actually the grade 7 classroom. So this is your classroom, alright? And I decided I wanted to finish up the Hunger Games. I wanted to finish it up here in your classroom, especially since this was really a video. These videos, were really made for you guys so that you could read along with your teacher. Alright, so let us finish the Hunger Games, chapter 25. Mutations, no question about it. I've never seen these mutts, but they're no natural-born animals. They resemble huge wolves. But what wolf lands and then balances easily on its hind legs? What wolf waves the rest of the pack forward with its front paws though it had a wrist? These things I can see at a distance. Up close, I'm sure their more menacing attributes will be revealed, okay? So the monsters that are chasing Pita, Katniss, and Kato, they're like wolves, guys, but they're standing on their back legs, okay? So they're standing on their back legs, and they're kind of like calling the others. So it's kind of like, they're like almost like werewolves, where they're like half human, half wolf. Kato has made a beeline for the cornucopia, and without question, I follow him. If he thinks it's the safest place, who am I to argue? Besides, even if I could make it to the trees, it would be impossible for Pita to outrun them on that leg. Pita! My hands have just landed on the metal at the pointed tail of the cornucopia when I remember I'm part of a team. He's about 15 yards behind me, hobbling as fast as he can, but the mutts are closing in on him fast. I send an arrow into the pack and one goes down, but there are plenty to take its place. Pita's waving me up the horn. Go, Katniss, go! He's right, I can't protect either of us on the ground. I start climbing, scaling the cornucopia on my hands and feet. The pure gold surface has been designed to resemble the woven horn that we fill at harvest, so there are little ridges and seams to get a decent hold on. But after a day in the arena sun, the metal feels hot enough to blister my hands. Kato lies on his side at the very top of the horn, 20 feet above the ground, gasping to catch his breath as he gags over the edge. Now's my chance to finish him off, but I stop midway up the horn and load another arrow. But just as I'm about to let it fly, I hear Pita cry out. I twist around and see he's just reached the tail and the mutts are right on his heels. Climb, I yell. Pita starts up, hampered by not only the leg but the knife in his hand. I shoot my arrow down the throat of the first mutt that places its paw on the metal. As it dies, the creature lashes out, inadvertently opening gashes in a few of its companions. That's when I get a look at the claws, 4 inches and clearly razor sharp. Pita reaches my feet and I grab his arm and pull him along. Then I remember Kato waiting at the top and whip around, but he's doubled over with cramps and apparently more preoccupied with the mutts than us. He coughs out something unintelligible. The snuffling, growling sound coming from the mutts isn't helping. What? I shout at him. He said, Can they climb it? Answers Pita, drawing my focus back to the base of the horn. The mutts are beginning to assemble. As they join together, they raise up again to stand easily on their back legs, giving them an eerily human quality. Each has a thick coat, some with fur that is straight and sleek, others curly, and the colors vary from jet black to what I can only describe as blonde. There's something else about them, something that makes the hair rise up on the back of my neck, but I can't put my finger on it. So these half-human, half-werewolves, these half-human, half-wolf creatures, kind of like werewolves, these seem, it's freaking Katniss out. They're creepy, they're dangerous, and they just look such a way that Katniss is creeped out by them. Not only is she scared of them, obviously, because they're dangerous, but she's almost freaked out by them. They put their snouts on the horn, sniffing and tasting the metal, scraping paws over the surface, and then making high-pitched yipping sounds to one another. This must be how they communicate, because the pack backs up as if to make room. Then one of them, a good-sized mutt with silky waves of blonde fur, takes a running start and leaps onto the horn. Its back legs must be incredibly powerful because it lands a mere 10 feet below us, its pink lips pulled back in a snarl. For a moment it hangs there, and in that moment I realize what else unsettled me about the mutts. The green eyes glowering at me are unlike any dog or wolf, any canine I've ever seen. They are unmistakably human, and that revelation is barely registered when I notice the collar with the number 1 inlaid with jewels, and the whole horrible thing hits me. The blonde hair, the green eyes, the number. It's Glimmer. Oh. So these creations, these monsters made by the Capitol, these half-human, half-wolf creatures, they are designed based on the tributes. They look like the tributes, okay? The tributes who died already. So Glimmer, Ruth, Resh, okay? Foxface, all of the tributes that have died. The Capitol turned them into these wolf monsters, no? And it's horrifying. It's so awful. A shriek escapes my lips, and I'm having trouble holding the arrow in place. I have been waiting to fire, only too aware of my dwindling supply of arrows, waiting to see if the creatures can, in fact, climb. But now, even though the mutt has begun to slide backward, unable to find any purchase on the metal, even though I can hear the slow screeching of the claws like nails on a blackboard, I fire into its throat. Its body twitches and flops into the ground with a thud. Katniss, I can feel Pita's grip on my arm. It's her, I get out. Who? Asks Pita. My head snaps from side to side as I examine the pack, taking in the various sizes and colors, the small one with a red coat and amber eyes, Foxface, and there the ashen hair and hazel eyes of the boy from District 9 who died as we struggled for the pack, and worst of all, the smallest mutt, with dark glossy fur, huge brown eyes, and a collar that reads 11 in a woven straw, teeth bared in hatred. Rue, what is it, Katniss? Pita shakes my shoulder. It's them. It's all of them. The others, Rue and Foxface, and all of the other tributes, I choke out. I hear Pita's gasp of recognition. What did they do to them? You don't think those could be their real eyes? Their eyes are the least of my worries. What about their brains? Have they been given any of the real tributes' memories? Have they been programmed to hate our faces, particularly because we have survived and they were so callously murdered? And the ones we actually killed, do they believe they're avenging their own deaths? Before I can get this out, the mutts begin a new assault on the horn. They've split into 2 groups at the sides of the horn and are using those powerful hindquarters to launch themselves at us. A pair of teeth ring together just inches from my hand, and then I hear Pita cry out, feel the yank on his body, the heavy weight of boy and mutt pulling me over the side. If not for the grip on of my arm, he'd be on the ground. But as it is, it takes all my strength to keep us both on the curved back of the horn, and more tributes are coming. Kill it, Pita, kill it, I'm shouting, and although I can't quite see what's happening, I know he must have stabbed the thing because the pull lessens. I'm able to haul him back onto the horn, where we drag ourselves toward the top, where the lesser of 2 evils awaits. Cato has still not regained his feet, but his breathing is slowing, and I know soon he'll be recovered enough to come for us, to hurl us over the side to our deaths. I arm my bow, but the arrow ends up taking out a mutt that can only be Thresh. Who else could jump so high? I feel a moment's relief because we must finally be up above the mutt line, and I'm just turning back to face Cato when Pita's jerked from my side. I'm sure the pack has got him until his blood splatters my face. Cato stands before me, almost at the lip of the horn, holding Pita in some kind of headlock, cutting off his air. Pita's clawing at Cato's arm, but weakly, as if confused over whether it's more important to breathe or try and stem the gush of blood from the gaping hole a mutt left in his calf. I aim one of my last 2 arrows at Cato's head, knowing it will have no effect on his trunk or limbs, which I can now see are clothed in a skin-tight, flesh-colored mesh. Some high-grade body armor from the Capitol. Was that what was in his pack at the feast? Body armor to defend against my arrows? Well, they neglected to send a face guard. Cato just laughs. Shoot me and he goes down with me. He's right. If I take him out and he falls to the mutts, Pita is sure to die with him. We've reached a stalemate. I can't shoot Cato without killing Pita too. He can't kill Pita without guaranteeing an arrow in his brain. We stand like statues, both of us seeking an out. My muscles are strained so tightly they feel they might snap at any moment. My teeth clench to the breaking point. The mutts go silent, and the only thing I can hear is the blood pounding in my good ear. Pita's lips are turning blue. If I don't do something quickly, he'll die of asphyxiation, and then I'll have lost him, and Kato will probably use his body as a weapon against me. In fact, I'm sure this is Kato's plan, because while he stopped laughing, his lips are set in a triumphant smile. As if in a last-ditch effort, Pita raises his fingers, dripping with blood from his leg, up to Kato's arm. Instead of trying to wrestle his way free, his forefinger veers off. Hold on. Thank you. Okay, sorry, that was my lunch, okay? My lunch got delivered. I'm so sorry for that little awkward pause. But at least I have food now. And we're reading The Hunger Games, and I'm hungry, and my food's waiting for me. So let us continue. As if in a last-ditch effort, Peter raises his fingers, dripping with blood from his leg, up to Kato's arms. Instead of trying to wrestle his way free, his forefinger veers off and makes a deliberate X on the back of Kato's hand. Kato realizes what it means exactly 1 second after I do. I can tell by the way the smile drops from his lips, but it's 1 second too late, because by that time my arrow is piercing his hand. He cries out and reflexively releases Pita, who slams back against him. For a horrible moment, I think they're both going over. I dive forward, just catching hold of Pita as Kato loses his footing on the blood-slick horn and plummets to the ground. We hear him hit, the air leaving his body on impact, and then the mutts attack him. Pita and I hold on to each other, waiting for the cannon, waiting for the competition to finish, waiting to be released, but it doesn't happen. Not yet, because this is the climax of the Hunger Games and the audience expects a show, okay? So, Kato was holding Pita, no? And then Katniss didn't know what to do. She didn't know what to do. She thought that if I kill Kato, he will fall down and he will bring Pita with him. And so what Pita did was he put an X in Kato's hand, and so Katniss knew I should shoot him in the hand. And so she shoots him in the hand, she shoots Kato in the hand, he lets go of Pita, and then Pita pushes him back and Kato falls down. Katniss grabs Pita before Kato can grab him. Kato falls to the ground, and the mutts attack him, okay? I don't watch, but I can hear the snarls, the growls, the howls of pain from both human and beast as Kato takes on the mutt pack. I can't understand how he can be surviving until I remember the body armor protecting him from ankle to neck, and I realize what a long night this could be. Kato must have a knife or sword or something too, something he has hidden in his clothes, because on occasion there's the death scream of a mutt or the sound of metal on metal as the blade collides with the golden horn. The combat moves around the side of the cornucopia, and I know Kato must be attempting the one maneuver that could save his life, to make his way back around to the tail of the horn and rejoin us. But in the end, despite his remarkable strength and skill, he is simply overpowered. I don't know how long it has been, maybe an hour or so, when Kato hits the ground and we hear the mutts dragging him back into the cornucopia. Now they'll finish him off, I think, but there's still no cannon. Night falls and the anthem plays, and there's no picture of Kato in the sky, only the faint moans coming from the metal beneath us. The icy air blowing across the plain reminds me that the games are not over and may not be for who knows how long, and there is still no guarantee of victory. I turn my attention to Pita and discover his leg is bleeding as badly as ever. All our supplies or packs remain down by the lake where we abandoned them when we fled from the mutts. I have no bandage, nothing to staunch the flow of blood from his calf. Although I'm shaking in the biting wind, I rip off my jacket, remove my shirt, and zip back into the jacket as swiftly as possible. That brief exposure sets my teeth chattering beyond control. Pita's face is gray in the pale moonlight. I make him lie down before I probe his wound. Warm, slippery blood runs over my fingers. A bandage will not be enough. I've seen my mother tie a tourniquet a handful of times and tried to replicate it. I cut free a sleeve from my shirt, wrap it twice around his leg, just under his knee, and tie a half knot. I don't have a stick, so I take my remaining arrow and insert it in the knot, twisting it as tightly as I dare. It's risky business. Pita may end up losing his leg, but when I weigh this against him losing his life, what alternative do I have? I bandage the wound in the rest of my shirt and lie down with him. Don't go to sleep, I tell him. I'm not sure if this is exactly medical protocol, but I'm terrified that if he drifts off, he'll never wake again. Are you cold? He asks. He unzips his jacket and I press against him as he fastens it around me. It's a bit warmer, sharing our body heat inside my double layer of jackets. But the night is young. The temperature will continue to drop. Even now, I can feel the cornucopia, which burned so when I first climbed it, slowly turning to ice. Cato may win this thing yet, I whisper to Pita. Don't you believe it, he says, pulling up my hood, but he's shaking harder than I am. The next hours are the worst in my life, which if you think about it is saying something. The cold would be torture enough, but the real nightmare is listening to Cato, moaning, begging, and finally just whimpering as the mutts work away at him. After a very short time, I don't care who he is or what he's done. All I want is for his suffering to end. Okay, now, this part is very painful, no? But I love that Susan Collins included it because Cato, guys, he's been the bad guy, no? He's kind of been the villain in the arena for the entire book, no? He was always the one who would be hardest to beat. He was always the most heartless, the most cruel, and yet we feel sorry for him. Katniss feels sorry for him because he's dying and he's dying slowly, no? And we're not meant to be like, yes, Myra, he deserves it. Susan Collins doesn't want us to feel that way. Susan Collins wants us to pity him, even though he is the enemy. We want his suffering to end because he is still a human being. We shouldn't be cruel. No, the monster inside of us shouldn't be happy that he's suffering and he's dying painfully. Our feeling should be, he's a human being and we want his suffering to end. We feel sorry for him. And Katniss, no? Katniss has that monster in her, but even in this moment, she feels sorry for Cato and she feels compassion for Cato, even though he is the enemy. So it's a very painful moment, but it's a very important moment. And I'm really happy Susan Collins added it, no? Where even if he's the enemy, we can grieve for him and we can still see him as a human being. Why don't they just kill him? I ask Pita. You know why, he says and pulls me closer to him. And I do. No viewer could turn away from the show now. From the game maker's point of view, this is the final word in entertainment. It goes on and on and on and eventually completely consumes my mind, blocking out memories and hopes of tomorrow, erasing everything but the present, which I begin to believe will never change. There will never be anything but cold and fear and the agonized sounds of the boy dying in the horn. Pita begins to doze off now, and each time he does, I find myself yelling his name louder and louder, because if he goes and dies on me now, I know I'll go completely insane. He's fighting it, probably more for me than for him. And it's hard because unconsciousness would be its own form of escape, but the adrenaline pumping through my body would never allow me to follow him, so I can't let him go. I just can't. The only indication of the passage of time lies in the heavens, the subtle shift of the moon. So Pita begins pointing it out to me, insisting I acknowledge its progress, and sometimes, for just a moment, I feel a flicker of hope before the agony of the night engulfs me again. Finally, I hear him whisper that the sun is rising. I open my eyes and find the stars fading in the pale light of dawn. I can see too how bloodless Pita's face has become, how little time he has left. and I know I have to get him back to the capital. Still, no cannon has fired. I press my good ear against the horn and can just make out Cato's voice. I think he's closer now, Katniss. Can you shoot him? Peeta asks. If he's near the mouth, I may be able to take him out. It would be an act of mercy at this point. My last arrow's in your tourniquet, I say. Make it count, says Peeta, unzipping his jacket, letting me loose. So I free the arrow, tying the tourniquet back as tightly as my frozen fingers can manage. I rub my hands together, trying to regain circulation. When I crawl to the lip of the horn and hang over the edge, I feel Peeta's hands grip me for support. It takes a few moments to find Cato in the dim light, in the blood. Then the raw hunk of meat that used to be my enemy makes a sound, and I know where his mouth is, and I think the word he's trying to say is, please. Pity, not vengeance, sends my arrow flying into his skull. Peeta pulls me back up, bow in hand, quiver empty. Did you get him? He whispers. The cannon fires in answer. Then we won, Katniss, he says hollowly. Hooray for us, I get out, but there's no joy of victory in my voice. A hole opens in the plain, and as if on cue, the remaining mutts bound into it, disappearing as the earth closes above them. We wait for the hovercraft to take Cato's remains, for the trumpets of victory that should follow, but nothing happens. Hey, I shout into the air, what's going on? The only response is this chatter of waking birds. Maybe it's the body, maybe we have to move away from it, says Peeta. I try to remember. Do you have to distance yourself from the dead tribute on the final kill? My brain is too muddled to be sure, but what else could be the reason for the delay? Okay, think you could make it to the lake, I ask. Think I better try, says Peeta. We inch down to the tail of the horn and fall to the ground. If the stiffness in my limbs is this bad, how can Peeta even move? I rise first, swinging and bending my arms and legs until I think I can help him up. Somehow we make it back to the lake. I scoop up a handful of the cold water for Peeta and bring a second to my lips. A mockingjay gives the long, low whistle, and tears of relief fill my eyes as the hovercraft appears and takes Cato's body away. Now they will take us. Now we can go home. But again, there's no response. What are they waiting for, says Peeta weakly. Between the loss of the tourniquet and the effort it took to get to the lake, his wound has opened up again. I don't know, I say. Whatever the holdup is, I can't watch him lose any more blood. I get up to find a stick, but almost immediately come across the arrow that bounced off Cato's body armor. It will do as well as the other arrow. As I stoop to pick it up, Claudius Templeswift's voice booms into the arena. Greetings to the final contestants of the 74th Hunger Games. The earlier revision has been revoked. Closer examination of the rulebook has disclosed that only one winner may be allowed, he says. Good luck, and may the odds be ever in your favor. Okay. So, Cato is dead. Peeta and Katniss have won, no? So the games should be over. And then, the Capitol changes the rules again. They say, okay, no, we won't allow that there will be two winners. There can only be one winner. So you have to kill each other. Only one can win. Okay, that's the new rule. We changed it again. Oh man, the Capitol is so off. There's a small burst of static and then nothing more. I stare at Peeta in disbelief as the truth sinks in. They never intended to let us both live. This has all been devised by the game makers to guarantee the most dramatic showdown in history, and like a fool I bought into it. If you think about it, it's not that surprising, he says softly. I watch as he painfully makes it to his feet. Then he's moving toward me as if in slow motion. His hand is pulling the knife from his belt. Before I am even aware of my actions, my bow is loaded with the arrow pointed straight at his heart. Peeta raises his eyebrows, and I see the knife has already left his hand on its way to the lake, where it splashes in the water. I drop my weapons and take a step back, my face burning in what can only be shame. No, he says, do it. Peeta limps toward me and thrusts the weapon back in my hands. I can't, I say, I won't. Do it before they send those mutts back or something. I don't want to die like Kato, he says. Then you shoot me, I say furiously, shoving the weapons back at him. You shoot me and go home and live with it. And as I say it, I know death right here, right now, would be the easier of the two. So Pita is like, kill me, go, shoot me so you'll win. And Katniss is like, no, I won't do it. I can't kill you. You kill me na lang. You be the one to win. Okay, because Katniss said she would rather die than have to kill Pita. You know I can't, Pita says, discarding the weapons. Fine, I'll go first anyway. He leans down and rips the bandage off his leg, eliminating the final barrier between his blood and the earth. No, you can't kill yourself, I say. I'm on my knees, desperately plastering the bandage back onto his wound. Katniss, he says, it's what I want. You're not leaving me here alone, I say, because if he dies, I'll never go home. Not really. I'll spend the rest of my life in this arena trying to think my way out. Listen, he says, pulling me to my feet. We both know they have to have a victor. It can only be one of us. Please take it for me. And he goes on about how he loves me, what life would be without me, but I've stopped listening because his previous words are trapped in my head, thrashing desperately around. We both know they have to have a victor. Yes, they have to have a victor. Without a victor, the whole thing would blow up in the game makers' faces. They'd have failed the Capitol, might possibly even be executed, slowly and painfully while the cameras broadcast it to every screen in the country. If Pita and I were both to die, or they thought we were, my fingers fumble with the pouch on my belt, freeing it. Pita sees it and his hands clamp on my wrist. No, I won't let you. Trust me, I whisper. He holds my gaze for a long moment, then lets me go. I loosen the top of the pouch and pour a few spoonfuls of berries into his palm. Then I fill my own on the count of 3. Okay, so Katniss decided that if we both die, then everyone will see that the Capitol is the enemy good. If we both die, the game makers will be punished because there will be no victor. There will be no tribute, no who survived. If both Pita and Katniss die, the game makers, the Capitol will be the ones who are in trouble. And so they get the poison berries and they decide, let's both eat it. We won't kill each other. We refuse to kill each other. So we will both die. And the trouble will be on the Capitol. It will be on the game makers. No, they're the real enemy. So that's what Katniss's plan is. Let's eat the berries, both of us. Pita leans down and kisses me once very gently. The count of 3, he says. We stand, our backs pressed together, our empty hands locked tight. Hold them out, I want everyone to see, he says. I spread out my fingers and the dark berries glisten in the sun. I give Pita's hand one last squeeze as a signal, as a goodbye, and we begin counting. 1, maybe I'm wrong. 2, maybe they don't care if we both die. 3, it's too late to change my mind. I lift my hands to my mouth, taking one last look at the world. The berries have just passed my lips when the trumpets begins to blare. The frantic voice of Claudius Templesmith shouts above them, Stop! Stop! Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to present the victors of the 74th Hunger Games, Katniss Everdeen and Pita Millark. I give you the tributes of District 12. So Katniss and Pita, they put the berries in their mouths and then the Capitol freaks out, changes the rules again and says, okay, you're both the victors. There are 2 victors, the tributes of District 12. Katniss's plan works, but the berries are in their mouth. So we'll go to the next chapter, but I really have to eat first because I'm lightheaded with how hungry I am.